You guys for being here. Thank you for being here at least 1 minute early. We're going to get into it because we got a lot of stuff to do, and we'll just let people trickle in. Let me begin with a word of prayer, and then we'll jump into it this morning. God, we thank you so much for giving us this time to gather. I pray that you would teach us, that you would give us wisdom, that you would teach us through your word, and that, God, also you would help us to apply the things that we have heard and put them into everyday practice and use. God, we love you. We thank you for everything, and it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right. Well, it's so good to see everybody here today. I think this is week 8. It's either week 8 or week 9. I'm not sure which we're actually on, but we have we've got 2 more weeks. So just to kind of prep everybody, we've got some stuff to kind of cover over the next 3 weeks. The beginning of it was a lot more set up on the sort of the thinking or the argument for how to use time. And what we're going to begin to do over these next 3 weeks is we're going to get even more into the weeds on how to apply it and how to get more practical, okay? Because I really want to not just leave you with a desire to use your time wisely and to take responsibility in for yourself, for your family, for your church, and for your world, but I want to start actually looking at, well, what does that mean when we actually begin to put it into practice, okay? So today I'm going to very much skim through chapter 8. I trust that you have read chapter 8, and if you have not, it's a very short chapter in the book. Please go back and read it because I am going to skip over quite a bit. And for those of you that are running the PowerPoint up there, I'm going to be kind of skipping around a little bit today. So just, Blues Riff and B, watch me for the changes, try to keep up, like that's in the words of Marty McFly. So, so first thing is, so we're talking about chapter 8 is take responsibility for your family. And we live in a world where the family is rapidly deteriorating, and there's a whole litany of reasons for why that is, and I'm not going to get into all of those, but it's just the observation that the family in our current society is rapidly deteriorating, and solid households are few and far between. And this is where I think that we as Christians have an incredible opportunity to be a light to the world around us and to actually build something. Because right now, you have a lot of people that are out there that are actually doing everything they can to rip down the family and to tear down the family. But here's the reality, is that when we as Christians get in and actually take responsibility for our households, we become the strong backbone of the actual culture, and the rest of it just ends up falling away and fading away. And so part of this, it's so important that you learn to take full responsibility for your family, because you live in a world that says, no, what you really need is you need some me time. And I'll tell you what, when you're living for building up your family, sometimes you have very little, me time, right? That's part of why you got to get very, very disciplined on your schedule and on your life so that you can actually be built up through Christ to be able to pour yourself out as a drink offering for your family. Right? To pour out your life for the people that are in specifically your family, and then your church family, and then the world, right? So I will say this about, just real quick, 1 Timothy 3:5, and you can kind of see where this is going for husbands. Just a couple of quick notes. 1 Timothy 3:5, it's talking about elders, but I don't believe that this is just for elders. This is really for men. If a man does not know how to lead his own household, how will he take care of the church of God? The idea is that elders who are leading the family of God need to be working on leading their family well, and there needs to be a track record of that, right? The idea is just that we as men have to learn how to lead our family well. That's like the big, call that we have been given. And the problem is that when men avoid the responsibility of leading their family well, and they're just checked out all the time, the problem is the family and the church suffer destruction. And this is the reality, and I get it. I mean, the reality is life is very hard, work is very hard, but guess what? Family is super, super important, and it's a major thing that we have to pour time and energy and effort into, and it's a place to put good, hard work into, and you can't just check out when it's time for family, right? So, just one quick little Watson quote here. A godly man promotes religion in his family. He sets up piety in his house as well as in his own heart, right? So in other words, it's not just the responsibility being in your family, but also in your own heart. There's those spheres. And then I love what he says here. He says, the family is a nursery of piety. It's a nursery. It's where you're growing your family. You're watering them. You're pruning them. You're taking care of them, right? Your family is a nursery of piety. A godly man's house is a little church, the church which is in his house. All men need to think of themselves first and foremost. Their main role past them doing the right thing and getting right before the Lord is to pastor their own family well. And if you do not have the responsibility of the family, you need to be working to become that kind of guy who is able to pastor your little flock well. One of my favorite things in the world is to be a pastor, okay? And that's not, I love being a pastor of Sovereign Grace Chapel, but even more, I love being a pastor of my little flock. Those girls it's one of my favorite things that I get to do in all of my life is pastor those girls. And dads, you're important in the home in that regard. So as far as wives go in the family, a couple of just things that I want to say to you very quickly, and that is this. First, don't listen to contemporary, godless women in the public arena who downplay having babies and establishing families that shine brightly for the glory of King Jesus. Wives and mothers are not only a good thing, they are indispensable for society and are given great responsibility that will affect generations to come. Listen, I am just here to say that the family is the most important fundamental unit of a society. And what are families made up of? I mean, in some ways it's not rocket science, but if you ask people today, they don't really know. They don't know what a family is because they don't know what a woman is, they don't know what a man is, right? Reality is, families are fundamentally made up of fathers, mothers, and children, and dogs, right? And pets. But the reality is, for ladies, you got to understand is that society is going to try to push you to adopt the mentality and the role of a husband. And husbands, the society is going to try to feminize you to make you a woman, okay? And that is just the harsh reality of the world that we live in. And how do we push back against that? We know our Bible and we understand the fundamental ways that God made humanity and how he built them in the garden, how God came to Adam. He made Adam first, right? And then what did he do? He made Eve. And then what did he give Adam and Eve? Children, right? And you see a fundamental order of structuring society, which is God over husband, over wife, over children, over creation. It's the mandate then to go and to subdue creation as a family. And so I really believe that the family should be the powerhouse of a society, and it really is the fundamental building block here. And so, ladies, I just want to say, push back against this because the world has no idea what it's doing, and it is not aligning itself with scriptural mandates. Third is children, okay? And I just want to hit this really quickly here, because a lot of times in our society as well, most people have no concept of what children should be doing. It's like, I don't know. Like, what's your kid supposed to be doing? I don't know. Staying out of trouble. Don't kill someone. Don't kill, like, don't blind your sister with the thing it's like, what's your vision for your kids? What's your vision? And I want to challenge everybody, like, that we need to start having a vision for children that just goes to something more than just hoping they stay out of trouble, okay? So Proverbs 1:8, I just want you to realize the book of Proverbs primarily is written to young people. It's written to young men. It's written to those who are learning and growing. In fact, there are a number of sermons that are going throughout the book of Proverbs, and there's sermons that are delivered by different characters in the family. And so there's a sermon from the father, there's actually a sermon from the grandfather, and it's really interesting because they're talking to their sons and the kids. And one of the things in Proverbs 1:8 you just find is that there is this, he's calling them to have wisdom, to operate in wisdom. And then we start unpacking in the book of Proverbs what wisdom is in its many forms of doing all of the good things you're called to do, right? All of the good hard work of the book of Proverbs. Look at Proverbs chapter 20, verse 11. I just want you to see this really quickly. It says, "It is by his deeds that a young man makes himself known, if his conduct is pure and right." Listen, I'm telling you, your good hard works as a young man or young woman is exactly what you need to be doing to make yourself known. And what does that mean? The kind of person you are. Because what you do flows out of who you are and who you are working to become. So young people, my thing is, you gotta also not buy into the garbage that is getting thrown your way from society, because society basically is saying, you're gonna be forever young, and what matters most is youth. And the young, you think about like our culture, like it props up everything young, but then discards after it's no longer the current fad, trend, viral sensation. It gets tossed to the side because our culture kind of like, it says, in the words of Jay-Z, forever young, I want to be forever young, right? Living life like a video. I used to listen to some Jay-Z back in the day. I could do the first verse. But it's this idea that like we're gonna live life like this beautiful video, and we're gonna be forever young. And he says at the end of the verse, when the director yells cut, I'll be fine because I'm forever young. And I just want to say, I reject that, Jay-Z. You are not going to be forever young. In fact, we see it now. You're going to die, and you're going to stand before God, and you're going to give an account for every single deed that you did in the body, every word you said, every thought you had. You should have been living for that instead of telling young people that they're going to just be forever young, and they're just to expect a life to be like this video. The reality is that life has a fleeting nature, and this needs to stay ever before you, because there's there's this illusion of life, this illusion of youth that life will last forever. And I just want to tell you, it will not. It will not. So, the modern world wants you to stay a kid forever. It paints maturity and growing up as a tragedy to be avoided at all costs, right? I mean, you think about like movies, it's like I lost my childlike whatever. And usually there's just this like, this total emphasis on like not growing up, right? Peter Pan, never grow up. But the reality is that Scripture paints it as young people, instead of buying into that lie, you need to lean into the fact that your little life, the little years that you've even had so far, you're going to give an account for those. And you have to learn to take responsibility in the appropriate way that God has given you in the moment that God has given you. And so I will say this, as Jonathan Edwards wrote when he was a teenager, and this is why I like some of these guys, they've been doing this for a long time, right? Edwards says he resolves never to lose one moment of time, but to invest it in the most profitable way I possibly can. And I'll tell you what, if you look at Edwards' life, you'll see that that's actually something he really worked to live by. And he started doing that when he was in his teens, right? I mean, so I just want to say there is another way, young people, like lean into the responsibilities that God's given you. And so as a young person, how should you properly think about life and responsibility? And I'll give you just a couple of these because we can't stay here forever, but I'll move through them. First, be thankful for the stage in which you find yourself. Instead of focusing on independence or the future, live in the now, okay? And what I mean by that is I'm not talking the future when you stand before God, but I'm talking like the future that like always happens where as a young person, it's like, oh, I'll be happy when, right? Oh, I'll be happy when I get my license, and I can have some independence. I'll be happy when I graduate high school. I'll be happy when I. And it just keeps going on and on. It doesn't stop, okay? So here's what I want you to do, young people, is just say, okay, regardless of what's going to happen in the future, I'm going to live for right now and the ministry opportunities and the things that God has put right in front of me, right here, right now, in my family, where I'm at now. And I'm going to build some stuff with my fam, okay? Because number 2, there's a time of training, okay? Soak in every bit of knowledge and understanding. Soak in every bit of knowledge and understanding you can get. Don't be a lazy student. Get in there and get it done. Okay? Make it happen. Don't be lazy. This is an incredible time of learning. So learn all you can learn because you're going to be in you're going to be in stages of life where you're going to have a whole lot. You're going to be learning different lessons, and it's going to be a whole lot harder. What I'm saying is, while you're in this stage, learn everything you can and be an awesome student. I really wish I would have done that earlier. Like all of my report cards, like we went through these. I was with my parents a little while ago, and they kept my like old report cards, and like my teachers, like it was like consistency across the board. I was like a perfectly awesome C student, across the board. And they would say, Josh has a lot of potential if he would just apply himself, and like they literally, every one of them to a T was like, yeah, he just doesn't care, like he needs to apply himself. And here's the deal. Like you think that you're not going to regret that, right? Who cares? It's just, I wish I would have gone back and I wish I would have been a diligent student like all the way back then, right? There's just, the reality is just don't waste your learning. You're in a good spot for that. So it's a time of training, soak it all in, get in there, get it done, don't be a lazy student. Number 3 is make yourself useful, okay? Again, it's not just about like wasting time and being bored and playing. I want you to play on teams and learn leadership, right? I want you to play on teams and learn physical discipline. but I don't want you to do nothing but play, 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 play. Why? Because if you look in the book of Proverbs, that's not what a young man does, is just play all day, play, play, play. Now, obviously, in this stage of life, there's a little bit more time that you got for that kind of stuff. However, the reality, and I know people in our society who are like, oh, let them go. They're only a kid once. You know, and I just want to say, like, yeah, right? They are. You got one shot at it. So I'm just saying, just take some responsibility, young people. Like, and that's one of the biggest things I think your parents also probably want you to do is like take responsibility for your life and for the people around you. Take responsibility for your learning. Take responsibility for your training. And then use your strength to serve your family and others in a way that's genuinely helpful and beneficial. Because here's the deal, like with young people, their glory is their strength. That's what Scripture tells us. Like the glory of old men is their wisdom. The glory of young men is their strength. Use the glory of your strength to serve your family and to make your family a powerhouse. Don't be a leech, be a help, right? All right, so that's what I want to encourage you guys, all you young people to do. Get in there, and like this is not for other people, this is for you. And so, you know, ultimately when all of this comes together, when all of this comes together, the family is meant to be a powerhouse of production, growth, and action that expands God's kingdom and causes societies to flourish. And when godly responsibility is embraced and every member puts in the necessary hard work, the family becomes alive as a hotbed of growth, maturity, and good deeds, and chaos, and wildness, right? And the reason why that's happening is Proverbs actually tells us, it says when there are a bunch of oxen in the stalls, it's messy and chaotic, but a lot of strength comes from the oxen. Listen, Mom and Dad, someday all the chaos in the stalls are going to be gone. But guess what goes with it? The oxen. So I just want to say, just enjoy the moments that you're in. Again, just enjoy the stage of life that you're at with your kids. Kids, enjoy the stage of life where you're at with your parents. Let's all work at this together, you know, doing the hard work together as families for the glory of God, right, in our world. And that's what my hope is for the family. Okay, so there's a lot more on this, and you can read through it, in the book. But I just wanted to especially kind of frame all of that because basically at this point, what we've got to do is we've got to begin to take the ideas here and we've got to say, okay, if I'm going to take responsibility for my family, and it's going to start by taking responsibility for myself, my family, my church, and my world, right? So with that, we have to actually begin to create plans, okay? Because if you want to be, let's just say, a dad who disciples his children, right, and leads them in the Lord, listen, that's a great idea. But if it just remains an idea and it doesn't actually get onto your calendar, what does it not do? It doesn't become reality, okay? Time equals reality. If it doesn't get into time, it does not get into reality, okay? And I cannot stress this enough. This is one, just like a little nugget there that will literally transform everything that you do. Because I'm telling you what, there's so many people who would agree with so many of these things, but then the problem is, it doesn't actually, they just get caught up in the rat race of the messy stalls, right? Because family life can get insanely messy. Personal life can get extremely messy. Your routines can get extremely messy, right? And so what the danger is here, the danger is that you will hear this and you will generally have an idea or a direction of saying like, yeah, I kind of have a process, and so I'm just going to leave it at kind of a process. I kind of have that. And then you're just going to get caught up in life. Because the problem is if you haven't actually like written out this stuff and you can't actually like point to specific things, with how you're going to use your time, a lot of times what happens is it just ends up completely getting away from us, right? And your life just goes crazy. And then what happens is you look back 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, and you're like, what did I wanted to do that, but like 2 years have gone by and I still haven't done that, right? And so we have to actually instantiate that into reality. We have to make an instance in time for all of this. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to give some very practical ways to start instantiating that into time or bringing this into an actual instance in your calendar or in your daily life, right? Okay, so the first thing is creating a plan for your ideal routine. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but there's two initial plans. Let me just back up here. There's two initial plans that once created will help you become more intentional with your time and a better steward. These plans are an ideal routine and an ideal week. Okay? I don't know if you've ever stopped to ask yourself the question, what does an ideal day look like for me? Like, what does the ideal look like, okay? You can always change from the ideal, but if you don't have like quite a vision for even what the ideal day is, and when I say ideal, again, interpret this through the lens of everything you've learned for the last 8 weeks. I'm not just saying like, hey, what's fun? What do I want to do today? Like it's thinking like what's an ideal day in order to execute on all of these responsibilities well. What does that ideal day look like, right? And then an ideal week. So we kind of zoom out from the daily sort of grind of it to like the weekly, right? So these two plans are super helpful, and you really need to kind of map them out. Now, you could do this 100 different ways, but I'll just show you how I have done it, and it seems to be relatively helpful. So for me, look at like the ideal routine, and what this does is this is like how you kind of begin to group habits together, and you habit stack in various cadences throughout the day, okay? So I kind of think about it as this, and I've got warm up as 1, number 2 is work out, and number 3 is wind down, okay? And here's kind of I'll back up and go through these one at a time, but I'm warming up. I'm like, it's funny, the Puritans talk about like waking up as like a mini resurrection every day, and you almost need to think like you didn't die. You were like, you've been resurrected to life again that day. And they look at like the end of day as like a mini death where you're going to your grave, like it's just kind of fun. I love it. So I love these guys. I'm like, I know, right? That's so intense. That's exactly it. That's the way we need to think about it, right? So when you wake up in the morning, you're waking up like, God, your mercies are new. Well, how do you want to enter the land of the living? How do you want to spend that resurrection morning in your life? And don't take it lightly, okay? Because this is part of the problem that happens in that resurrection moment where you are waking up and coming into the land of the living. This is what happens. Oh, okay. Scroll. Listen, I just want to say, at least make this commitment, please. Let's just all do this. Like, let's not do that. Let's listen to God's words as the first thing as a resurrected body in the morning, okay? Let's listen to him. Let's get his words in our soul. Let's pray to him, right? But here's what I want you to do, is I want you to think about this warm-up phase. How are you going to enter the land of the living? What is that warm-up phase going to look like, right? So for, I'll just say, this is things like, and we'll work out some more details a little bit down the road here, but, it's things like, you're waking up in the morning. The first thing I want to do is I want to read a chapter from the book of Proverbs. This is me. I just want to be a wise person, okay? I want to have wisdom. I want to have wisdom, and I realize how much I don't know and how often I act foolishly. And the book of Proverbs in the morning, just as a first thing, helps me orient with the world around me according to God's design and his perspective on life. A great name is to be chosen rather than riches. Like, I believe that was the one that was this morning, right? Or something to that effect. But like, it was like, that's what I want to see the first thing when I wake up. Now, this could be different for everybody. I mean, for me, I do a little mini workout routine just to kind of get the blood pumping, get down, throw some push-ups, right? Do some reverse crunches, do some, do a little bit of planking, do some air squats, whatever. I'm just like warming up in the middle or in the morning, like ready to like get after it, right? Amy's asleep, so I just got to be careful, because I'm doing this in the dark. So before my evening, sort of like, wind down, part of my wind down phase is to actually set my clothes out where I know they're going to be, because I'm going to be waking up and it's going to be pitch black, right? And I need to know like where stuff is so that I can do my workout, get dressed all in the dark, right? That's just me. Now you might have a different routine. That's okay. I don't know exactly what it's going to be. Like after this, we're going to drink some water. We're going to hydrate. We're going to, vitamins, whatever. Breakfast. I mean, everybody's got different kinds of wake up routines, right? These warm up things. But I want you to think about like, what does a best case scenario look like for you, where you're waking up and you're becoming an active part of the world and you're getting into the mindset of the Bible and the mindset of truth and the mindset of where God wants you. What does that look like, okay? Work phase, I mean, again, what does an ideal day of work look like? And I know some of you have schedules that are just all over the map, but I'm just saying, just do this. Like you can shoot with really broad, paint a real broad brush when it comes to like, I say workout, I'm not talking about like working out, I'm just like working out into the world, right? Like it's like I'm getting to work because I'm like coming alive, getting work done, and then I'm winding down, getting ready for death. That's kind of that's the plan. So, what is your typical day? What does that need to look like? Write it out. I would just really encourage you to do a mind dump and write this stuff out, because it's so amazing what happens. We just assume a lot of things because we're like, well, I generally whatever, but then this is also where like you get off track because you're not actually being intentional about it. When you begin to write it down and like actually list it out intentionally, again, what am I saying? I'm like, we want to be intentional about all this stuff, right? And again, wind down phase. This is going to be like, what are you doing before bed when you're because these are perfect places, by the way, and the reason why I like kind of key in on these are perfect places to habit stack like amazing godly habits on either end of these things, right? Things that are going to happen every day. You don't get away from the fact that you have to, die daily. And you are going to wake up, Lord willing, right? There's going to be a death and a resurrection in your life every single day. And the great thing about habit stacking is you can just start going on auto because you're putting the right things in and you're just doing the thing. But you don't even have to feel like doing it. You just do it, right? You brush your teeth. You floss your teeth. I mean, my dentist says, only you don't have to floss, only floss the ones you want to keep. I'm like, got it. That's like, the quintessential dentist joke. But here's the thing, is like, Like, yes, you should. You should do all of those things so that you can chew meat when you're old, right? Like, do these things, habit stack those things on top of one another. For me, it was like at one point, and by the way, this stuff changes over time, right? Because like at one point, I was doing like biographies in the evening, because those are just like light reading, and it's kind of, it's like better than just zoning out on a TV show or whatever. But Amy and I, like, we started just reading together in the evening. So like one part of like our evening routine is I'm helping her outside clean stalls, which is a hoot. And then we're coming in, and and then she reads to me in bed. Like it's so relaxing just to have somebody read to you. So we kind of trade off. Like I'm helping her with stalls. She's reading to me, and we're reading Puritan. William Gouge on marriage, which, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, that's, those Puritans, bro, oh, they're really good. Anyway, but that's something, like, I'm telling you what, like, at different points, there's been different, like, routines, but, like, when you find something, a lot of times what you'll do is, like, it's like, man, you're like, that's money, because, like, right now, I'm like, man, there's certain parts of this routine that I'm like, this is locked in. You get locked and loaded, and then you're ready to go, right? You're ready to serve the world around you. So write out those different plans. The weekly plan is very similar, but it is, it's taking into account what's my ideal week. And a lot of people have they've never gone through and time blocked out their week. You remember we talked about time blocks a couple weeks ago? You're actually blocking out different times to work on different projects or to work on different things that you need to do personally and as a family. So those are some very, very key plans to write out. What's my ideal day? What's my ideal week? Write them out, time block them, see what happens, because then what you can begin to do is, as you're moving forward into actually pulling things onto your calendar, you've got a vision for how you want to spend your time. Because what you also like end up realizing, sometimes like when you actually start doing the math, time blocking and creating this ideal week and these ideal days, it reminds me, this is like the greatest, I think, illustration of what it is. It's like budgeting, but for time, okay? Because here's what happens, like when you're spending money and you're just spending it on a gut feeling, how often does that work out? I mean, like sometimes it does. So I'm saying, like, can people get by in life without like making a plan of their ideal day and their ideal week? Yeah, you can get by with it, just like, like there's no like command to like thou shalt budget, but like, come on, like if you want to be fiscally responsible, you kind of got to know what's coming in, what's going out, where your accounts are. You got to have a bit of a plan for those things, right? And that's all I'm saying is like, that's what this stuff does, is it begins to get like, you're able to like visualize it, because a lot of times what happens is, you're like, I haven't spent that much this month, and then you get like your credit card statement and you're like, what? How in the world? And you almost get angry. Who's spent, and you're like, well, yep, okay, yep, that was me, yes, okay. All right, this is how it happens, and it happens the same thing with your time. There's no statement coming at the end of the month, like, hey, I mean, imagine how horrifying that statement would be, right? I mean, like here's a statement of how I almost wish like, that was like with every, salvation purchase, you could get, with your plan, you get a statement every month of like how you're doing spiritually. God's like, well, here's how you spent your time. But think about that. Just think about like what that statement will look like. So the point that I'm making is I'm just trying to push back on you saying, because I've heard it and I've even said it before, which is like, well, I generally know this stuff. And I don't want you to generally know it. I want you to specifically know it. Does that make sense? So moving on, it's setting up systems that support these habits that you're doing. And so, I've of all of the systems that you could create, we've got these plans of, what's my ideal day look like? What does my ideal week look like? The one time block that I think that you need to put in there, no matter what, especially at this stage, right, of like what you're doing, it's one habit to rule them all. This is, you need to put a time block in your week to plan the plan, okay? There's a lot of stuff going on in this class. I'm telling you to do a lot of things. This is like, in some ways, some of you, you've been doing certain elements or whatever, but I'm just saying, for somebody who is like trying to manage multiple areas of responsibility and to not just manage them, but to excel in them. Because I don't want to just like, I don't want to be decent. I don't want to be like, well, he wasn't a terrible dad, Like I want to be a good one, Like I want to be able to be like an awesome pastor, not just like, I don't know. I mean, he's kind of, maybe that's what you think. I don't know, but I'm trying, okay? But like the thing is like to do these things and to do them well, it takes actually a lot of work. And so the one time block you almost need to put in your week every week is time to work on the plan, okay? Because there's so much to do with the plan, and what'll happen is you'll get busy doing the thing, okay? Doing all of the stuff, cleaning the stalls, doing just all of the stuff that you had. In my case, it's literal. But like, doing all of the things that come from family life with all the mess. And what'll happen is you'll push off the planning. And what I want to say is like, nobody's going to come and say, you have to do this. What you almost have to do is you have to make a mental check. And this is why I'm just trying to flag this right here. You need time to plan the plan. Take time to not work in your systems, but to work on your systems. You really need to do that every week, because let's just say you miss it 1 week. After 2 weeks, it just seems like because of entropy, which means that the things just break down, what happens in family life and personal habits and all that kind of stuff is literally, it does not take, but it takes like a week to start a habit, and unfortunately, the downside is it takes about that long to just like to drop one, And what I'm saying is like, this is why it's just important. Whatever you do is to like kind of block that little like nugget of time out in your week where you can work on dealing with your week, right? So, and it varies from person to person and even varies from stage to stage. So the big thing is you need time to plan the plan in order to execute. So I'm going to run down through really quickly just a handful of kind of tools and things like that. This is from worksheet. This is a worksheet from step 5, which would be systems check, because in order to sort of back you up in your planning and in your diligence. Because I also want to say, like, a lot of people are like, well, I'm not a planner, and I want to say, like, neither was I. But then I just got really, like, intentional about being the responsibility that God has given me. And it just sort of starts happening by default. You have to actually just get in there and, like, figure out what's going to happen and not just leave it to chance, right? So if you're not naturally gifted at this, and I would say, like, this was something that I was not natural at, and part of it has just been, like, by necessity having to learn it and grow in it and like start working through these tools. And then again, what I said a couple weeks ago is you actually start to learn to like it. And you're like, man, what's exciting? It's like I'm with like Willow, we're talking and I'm like, all right, let's do some planning, and she's all excited. We're like, yeah, let's go, let's do this, That's what happens like after you're like kind of, jamming on it for a little while. So systems check. Again, I said the time slot, creating a daily check-in time, even if it's a few minutes to just check in your day, and then having a time throughout your week to actually work on the thing, okay? So these just like little check-ins. I mean, even for me, there's always got to be like, that's actually part of my night routine, which is checking what I've got to do the next day so I can kind of get my head wrapped around what's going to be happening the next day, right? So second thing is, as you begin to put these habits in place, I just asked the question, like, are there any one-time actions that you need to take to prepare yourself for a life of intentionality? Okay, now what do I mean by that? I'm just meaning like, before you begin your habits, taking time to prepare, look at your list and identify any one-time actions that need to happen to set yourself up for success. So some of this might be creating a workspace. I mean, like one of the first things I'm typically doing is like, I'm like, okay, we're clearing it out. Workspace is clean. I want I want to get organized somewhere so that this can be a beachhead for the chaos, right? There's things like that. It could be like, well, we don't have any type of calendaring system, and everybody in our family is doing different things, and maybe it would be awesome if we had a shared calendar that we could all see what one another's doing, right? There might be some one-time things to kind of, align you. Some of it might be it might be like a physical machine, like you don't have a computer that is, you click and it takes 45 minutes for, something else to happen. And so you need to get yourself some piece of tech or something that can whatever those things are. You need to kind of look through what you're doing. If you're doing your bee business or your stump grinding business or your cooking business or whatever it is, there are sometimes setup things, and you have to almost count the cost on setup in your life, right? But there are sometimes these one-time things that set you up. Now, don't get too far down that road and think you got to have it all set up before you begin. But that's a whole nother rabbit trail. But what I will say is sometimes you got to figure out, what do I need to do the thing? And maybe I just need to take a one-time action and investment to kind of get everything in order. Next thing is I'm gonna go through these really quickly and just kind of talk about their usefulness. And I know a lot of you already have these things as well. So some of you do, some of you don't. One is a planning notebook, okay? Now, what I would say is this needs to either be physical or digital, but you gotta have some place to begin to organize as a landing zone for thoughts and ideas and plans. Get something, okay? Whether or not it's a nice bespoke leather, notebook that has your thoughts in it, or it's a digital vault of all of your thoughts, be that something like Obsidian or, Evernote or, OneDrive or Google Drive or something like that, where you can actually create notes and store things in, because you've got to have a place where you can put your thoughts in. And for me, I have one document that's my master document that has all of the stuff that I need to do, all of the time blocks that I'm working on. So when it's time to fire up the system, I get in my, I call it my dashboard, and I get inside of my dashboard and I start I've got all of the things that I need to do to execute on each one of these areas that God has called me to execute on, okay? I want to have everything there because it's hard enough to do the thing, but there's another thing of just even trying to figure out the thing, okay? And that's why I'm saying you've got to work on your systems, not just operating within them. So planning notebook of some sort. Number two is conceptually, I think that you need some sort of an inbox, okay? And here's the reason I say an inbox, and I'm meaning for some people, it's like an email inbox. And again, you don't have to necessarily do all of this stuff, but what I'm just trying to give you some ideas. For me, I use my email inbox as a catch-all for all of my thinking, because I zero that thing out every single day. Every single day I'm zeroing that thing out, and that's because I don't want anything to slip through the cracks. So if something gets emailed to me, and I'm zeroing that thing out because I'm taking, again, those daily slots of working on it. I've got one in the morning, I've got one before I leave work, and usually, if I'm not too far behind, I can usually get everything where it needs to go in one of those 2 time blocks, right? And if it's something that's calendar related, I put it on the calendar. If it's something that I can take care of quickly, I'll shoot it out then, right? There's a number of things that you've got to do, but it's so easy to get overrun with all of the things. I just point everything toward that inbox so that when I do get set up on those time block sides where I'm working on the thing, I know exactly what I've got to, clean through and figure out what I've got to do, right? So I think that to me, it's like a laundry basket, for ideas. It's like I'm not sorting it right there. I'm just throwing everything in the laundry basket. When I go to do the laundry, it should get sorted, right? That's kind of the idea. You can have a physical inbox for things that are physical, and you need you could have a digital inbox. I hate physical inboxes, so I will take a picture of it and email myself into my inbox, right? I just don't I just want one easy, simple solution. So inbox, the other thing is a calendar. You really do need to have a calendar. And I know part of the problem that happens is that when you start using a calendar, a lot of times you will use it maybe for a little bit, but then you stop looking at it. And the problem is with all of these tools, if you're not using your tools and just being diligent about getting in and using your tools, here's what's going to happen is you stop trusting yourself and you stop trusting your process. Okay, so now you put it in your calendar, but you're never looking at your calendar. And so now you have to find some other way of writing a Post-it note and putting it on your forehead, right? Because you're going to forget if you don't. But the reality is if you just get in and do your process and trust your process and do your process every single day, what'll happen is you'll start to trust your process. You've heard people say, trust the process. Those are people that have a process. And they trust it, because they understand what happens when you actually just do the thing over and over and over again, and you trust your own process. For me, things slip through the cracks, but it's very rare, okay? And it's not because, I'm anything better than a C student from Jackson. It's just because there's a process in place that makes it hard for things to slip through because it's just, I've got a thing, it needs to go there. If you, that's part of the reason I hate text messages, by the way, and sometimes I'm bad at text messages, because it's the only thing out there that defies my process of my inbox. It drives me crazy, okay? Because a to-do will come into my messages, and I'm that's the only thing that it's I need to get it over to that inbox. Anyway, there's going to be holes in your system, and you're going to have to work on those and all of that kind of stuff. But you get the idea of why an inbox is important. That stuff goes there, and then you process through that, and you put it on your calendar. And again, you're spending time every day just looking at what you have to do. So these dates do not slip by you, and you don't forget the fact that you have to sign up for the castle retreat, before all the tickets are sold out, right? You have that on your calendar. So the point that I'm making is you need to get a calendar, and you have to look at it enough to trust that you will look at it every day, okay? Because if you stop trusting your calendar and you stop trusting your lists, it gets too crazy and too chaotic, and you stop trusting it, then we naturally start going around ourselves and our own processes, and we just start going AWOL, and we're Post-it notes, and you're I don't know, if I just write it on my hand, maybe I'll remember it then, It's does that make sense? So you gotta get in there, and you just gotta trust your own process. The other thing that you need is some kind of a reference system or a file system, okay? And this is what I would say is your second brain, or your external brain. You can't store everything in your brain, so you really do need a second brain to store all of the things in that you're never going to remember, right? You have to have a filing system. that you can stick all of the things in so that when it comes into the inbox, if it's a timed thing, like, I'm preaching in, let's just say I'm preaching in 2 months, right? So I just went through that there a couple of months, or a thing on it came into my inbox from Matt. We were talking about it. It goes onto my calendar, but then I put another time trigger that I need to start working on, research and getting all of this, like I need to start doing sermon prep on a particular, whatever. So like I'll back out some of those things and just put those as flags on my inbox so that it doesn't like creep up on me. Because if you don't have a system, what are you relying on? The Holy Spirit. It's just like, I'm just walking with the Lord, I don't know. Like, what are you relying on if you don't have like a system to lean on, right? It's just a whim, and that's why sometimes execution is done so poorly, is because it's all like you're expected to remember things. And part of the problem is this: it is so freeing. I know this sounds like it's almost over the top, and maybe it is in places, but what I will say is it's insanely freeing. Like, you wouldn't think that, but it's very freeing because I don't have to work on like forgetting things because I just have a process of where they go in. And when they hit the inbox, I know I either need to file that away for later or it needs to become an action item. And if it's an action item, the question is, what day do I have to have the action item done, or when do I have to do it? And so I put it on my calendar for that week, right? And I just start lining up. All of my to-dos are on my calendar. So when I hit that Monday and I'm looking at all the things that I have to do, maybe I'm not going to do those today, but what I just start doing is I start dragging my to-dos to different days of the week. So I know, do that on that day, do that on that day, do that on that day. And guess what? If it doesn't get done, what happens to that to-do item? I drag it to the next week. And now Monday, I'm back there looking at the thing again. And then sometimes I'm like, I'm never going to do that, delete. And that's really fun, like that. But at least you're doing it with intentionality, right? Again, what I'm saying is if you build a process like this and you have like a file system for when you have to do the action, you've got a couple of files that are associated with it, right? You can get in on that time and just do the thing. So for me, there's like, again, with this system, I'm trying to just give a practical way to get this stuff into reality. Because a lot of times what will happen is we'll have good ideas, but they don't actually they don't actually get into an inbox, which means they don't go onto a calendar, which means it doesn't happen, which means it's not real. I'm just like, that's typically what happens, right? Or it's like one of those things that it comes in, and because it's never actually moved into a position of, you want to read your Bible, but you haven't worked it into your, resurrection in the morning or your death in the evening, right? And these are the things, right? So the big thing that I want you to take away from all this is this is why I called it grit for glory. This is not like piece of cake for glory, this is like, that's not the name of this, it's hard. It's really hard work. But once you get into the flow of it, what it does is it enables you to do things that are taking care of the responsibility areas that God has given you, so that when you get before him, well done, my good and faithful servant. You got after it. That's what I want to hear. Hey, you went after it for my glory, for the right reasons, for the right things, and you poured your life out, and it was tough, and you just went after all the things. And guess what? I'm here to say that I also believe this with all my heart, is it's the most joyous, it's the most joyous way to live life with that end in mind. I hope that you always think about the future, the end, when you stand before God. And I hope that you do that every day when you go to sleep and you think, this is my miniature death. Am I ready to go see the Lord? And then you wake up and he's given you another day and you say his mercies are new every morning and you get to know him more that day and you get to live for him that day. Like, man, let us refocus all of our being around that. So we have 2 weeks left, okay? And I just want to thank all of you for sticking in. I know this is a lot of stuff, and it's even a lot of difficult things to work on putting into practice. And I'm just very thankful that all of you have stuck around. We've got 2 weeks left. Let's hit it hard. We've got a lot more practical stuff about actually building the habits and how to start, and then even more importantly, what to do when you fall off track, right? So that's also coming up here within the next couple of weeks. So we got 2 more weeks. I would say let's stick with it. I apologize for not posting the chapter and work. I will post that on Monday. I was out this week traveling, and so I'll have that all on Monday. But let's go after it. Let me pray for you real quick, and then you'll be dismissed. God, we just thank you so much for all that you have done for us. You are such a good God. Give us wisdom on these plans and help us to see them not as just superfluous things or things that don't really matter, but Lord, that we look at every moment of our time as being a very important thing and something that we will stand before you on. And Lord, I pray that you would just give us wisdom, give us strength, pick us up when we are weak, and Lord, we love you and we give you all the glory, and it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.